You have come to me seeking answers, not merely information, but revelation. And so I must begin not with facts, but with fire. For the work of the soul cannot begin until something burns, until something breaks. You think you came here to be healed? I say to you, you came here to remember that you were never broken, only haunted. Not by ghosts in the attic, but by forces in the unconscious that speak in symbols, nightmares, and strange compulsions. These are not random fragments of neurosis. They are messages from the shadow. And what is the shadow? It is everything within you that you have exiled, everything your ego deemed unacceptable, unworthy, dangerous. And so, in an act of psychological betrayal, perhaps even necessary for survival, at the time you cast it into darkness. You called it by many names: your anger, your fear, your desire, your weakness. You told yourself you were discarding what was bad, unholy, inappropriate. But that is a lie. You were exiling power. You were banishing magic. The shadow is not the opposite of light. It is the womb of light. And until you descend into it voluntarily, reverently you will remain possessed by what you do not understand. That which you repress does not disappear. It waits. It watches. It schemes. And in the moment of your exhaustion, your heartbreak, your confusion, it takes the wheel, and suddenly you are no longer yourself. You become reactive, addicted, anxious. You sabotage love. You destroy opportunities. And you call it bad luck. Or say, this is just who I am. No, that is who you are when you are possessed. Let us be clear. When I use the word possession, I do not speak metaphorically. I do not merely mean influence or confusion. The psyche has been invaded by an autonomous complex, a cluster of emotionally charged content that behaves like a second personality. It speaks in your voice, but it is not you. It has your memories, but it has forgotten your soul. You feel it when you erupt in rage over something small. You feel it when you beg for the love of someone who wounds you. You feel it when you self-destruct right before something beautiful begins. And in those moments, it is as if a spell has been cast. And that is precisely what the ancients understood, that psychology is indistinguishable from sorcery. That unconscious material, when not made conscious, behaves like a spirit with its own will. You cannot outsmart it. You cannot control it. You can only integrate it. So, let me repeat, with grave importance. Shadow work is not about fixing yourself. Fixing implies brokenness. But what if your panic was not a defect, but a messenger? What if your jealousy was not a shameful flaw, but a signal from the archetypal realm alerting you to a distortion in your relationship with power? You must come to see that you are a vessel, and like any vessel, you can be filled with light or with unprocessed fragments of your psychic history. That history may go back further than your childhood. Some of it may not even be personal. You carry ancestral trauma, cultural shadows, collective wounds, and yet your ego says, I should be fine. How absurd. You are the sum total of your forgotten gods and forsaken dreams. and they are clamoring for your attention, the work of the shadow is to invite them home, not to fix them, not to conquer them, but to say, I see you, I know what you did for me, I honor what I had to become to survive. Do you see? This is the difference between moralism and transformation, between pathology and myth. To the uninitiated, shadow work seems like therapy, but to the soul, it is ritual, it is not linear, it does not obey time. A single childhood memory can unlock 1,000 years of archetypal grief. A dream about a snake can unravel your entire identity. Why? Because symbols are more intelligent than words. Symbols are the language of the divine unconscious. And the snake, well, that is a symbol older than your name. It has slithered through Eden, medicine, alchemy. And the spine of your nervous system, when it appears in your dreams, is not random. It is trying to wake you up to your primal power, your buried life force. But if you do not listen, if you dismiss the dream, if you suppress the symbol, you begin to rot from within. You do not die, but you decay slowly, spiritually, and eventually you will call it depression. You will say, I don't know why I feel so heavy. And I will say, because you are carrying 100 unlived lives within you, because your inner world is teeming with abandoned children, a silenced tooth, and fractured archetypes who are still waiting for your acknowledgement. The unconscious does not forget. It remembers everything, every betrayal, every humiliation. Every time you told yourself, I shouldn't feel this. And when the memory becomes too unbearable for the conscious mind, it does not vanish. It becomes shadow. It becomes possessed content, and then it begins to leak. It leaks through sarcasm, through addictions, through obsessions. It leaks through psychosomatic illness, through failed relationships, through compulsive helping, compulsive fleeing, compulsive performing. You wear a mask, but it grows heavier each day. And eventually the mask fuses to your skin and you forget who you are beneath it. That is when you must go down into the depths, into the underworld. This is the descent myth known by all mystery traditions. Inanna, Persephone, Orpheus, Christ, they all go down, and so must you. You will not go down as a victim. You will go down as an initiate, and there, in the inner cave, you will not find monsters. You will find your younger self still crying, still burning. And when you reach them, you do not fix them. You hold them, you tell them the truth. You say, you are not too much, you are not wrong. You were never meant to carry this alone. And as you speak these words, something shifts. You feel the presence of something ancient, a serpent, perhaps a wolf, a goddess with flaming eyes. These are your archetypes, your psychic guardians. They were watching, waiting for you to stop pretending. Now that you have entered the cave of your own soul, they will begin to guide you, but do not expect comfort. The shadow is not comfortable. It is not polite. It is not Instagram worthy. It will show you the parts of yourself that make you weep with shame. It will drag your ego through the mud. It will strip you of your pretensions, and still you must thank it. For the shadow, you say, is not evil. It is repressed light. The more moral you are, the more rigid your self-image, the darker your shadow becomes. The priest has a darker shadow than the thief. The healer, darker than the warrior. Why? Because those who identify with light are often those who repress the most darkness. And so, when the shadow finally emerges, it does so explosively, scandalously. That is why great leaders fall, why saints collapse. They ignore their shadow. They tried to be gods. And the unconscious will not tolerate that. It demands wholeness, not perfection. So I ask you now, not to seek purity, but to seek integrity, to become someone who holds both fire and water, both rage and tenderness, both destruction and creativity. This is what it means to be initiated, not to be healed, but to be whole. And let me tell you the secret. The world does not want you to know your shadow holds your power. That wild, terrifying, unmanageable energy, you've been repressing your lust, your rage, your ambition. It is not your enemy. It is your dragon. And dragons do not die. They either guard the treasure or burn the village. It is your choice. Shadow work is about learning to ride the dragon, not to slay it, because the dragon is you. The dragon is your unlived life. And now, I will pause not to end, but to breathe. You are still here. That tells me you are ready to continue. And I must remind you, this path you walk now is sacred. The descent into the shadow is not a detour from healing. It is the only way through. You cannot ascend without first descending. The soul, like the moon, waxes only after it wanes. Let me speak now of dreams. If you want to know what possesses you, what truly governs your thoughts and actions, look not to your intentions but to your dreams. The dream does not lie. It speaks the language of the unconscious images, symbols, riddles. In waking life, you may suppress the memory of an ancient wound, but in the dream, that wound bleeds. It bleeds as a faceless figure chasing you, as a house that keeps changing rooms, as a child locked in a basement, as a familiar voice whispering something you cannot quite remember upon waking. These are not just dreams, these are visitations, messages, invitations to see what you've hidden from yourself. Do not interpret the dream too quickly. You must feel it first. Let it disturb you. Let it linger in the background of your day like a forgotten song. Then, only then ask, what part of me is this dream asking me to face? You see, each character in your dream is a fragment of you. Even the monster, especially the monster, if you run from it in the dream, it means you are running from yourself. If you fight it, you are at war with your instincts. If you embrace it, you have begun the sacred marriage, the union of opposites, the alchemical wedding. The alchemists were never just trying to make gold. They were trying to transmute the soul, the lead of unconscious pain into the gold of awakened presence. But the process was violent. They called it calcination, a burning away of false identities. That's what shadow work does. It burns away the persona, the mask you wear for the world, until only the truth remains. And truth is not pretty. It is raw, wild, divine. Why do you think we are so afraid of the shadow? Because to face it is to lose everything you thought you were. Your achievements, your status, your self-image, they begin to crumble when you realize they were built on a foundation of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being loved. The ego says, I must be good to be loved. The soul says, I must be whole to be free. And freedom is not comfortable. True freedom means facing the abyss inside you and saying, I belong here too. You begin to make peace with paradox. You realize you can love someone and still want to scream. You can be deeply spiritual and still crave touch, wealth, power. You can be peaceful and still rage when boundaries are crossed. This is not hypocrisy. This is complexity. This is what it means to be a fully alive human being. When you deny the shadow, you become rigid, moralistic, dogmatic. You split the world into good and evil, right and wrong, saved and damned. But when you integrate the shadow, you soften, you become nuanced. You begin to see through the illusion of binaries. You no longer ask, am I right? You ask, am I whole? Now let us speak of possession, again not as metaphor, but as mystical psychology. There are moments in your life when something seizes you, a jealousy that overtakes your logic, a grief that swallows your joy, a fury that frightens even you. In those moments, you are no longer operating from your ego. You have been possessed by an archetype. An archetype is not a personality. It is a primordial pattern of psychic energy. It exists in the collective unconscious. The mother, the orphan, the trickster, the warrior, the lover, these are not just roles you play, they are energies that animate your behavior. When integrated, they empower you. When repressed, they possess you. The shadow is the graveyard of your disowned archetypes. You were too sensitive as a child, so you buried the divine feminine. Now you cannot cry. You were too angry, so you buried the sacred warrior. Now you cannot protect yourself. You were too curious, so you buried the trickster. Now you cannot laugh or question. Each time you betray an archetype, it does not it hides. And then when you are tired or triggered, it returns, not as a whisper, but as a scream. This is why you sabotage your relationships. This is why you feel drained in certain rooms. This is why you cannot find rest, no matter how many books you read. You are possessed by what you refuse to feel. So, how do you release it? You must feel it, not analyze it, not fix it. Feel it in the body, in the breath, in the silence. The body is the unconscious. It holds your grief in your stomach, your rage in your jaw, your shame in your chest. Talk therapy is not enough. You must tremble. You must scream. You must dance the demon out. You must become the ritual. In ancient cultures, healing was not separate from art. They danced their wounds, they sang their grief, they drummed their rage into the earth. And the earth responded. She said, thank you for your honesty. But we have forgotten how to be honest. We perform wellness. We speak in affirmations while our shadow howls in the basement. And we wonder why we are still tired. You are tired because you are trying to be good. Stop trying to be good. Be real. Realness is the medicine of the soul. And when you are real, when you drop the performance, the shadow size, it says, finally, you see me, and something shifts. You no longer need to project your pain onto others. You no longer need to find a villain in every lover, a savior in every friend. You begin to own your story. You say, yes, I was wounded. And yes, I wounded others. And yes, I am still worthy of love. This is the moment of liberation. Not when the shadow disappears, but when you stop fearing it. Fear is a gatekeeper. Behind it is a treasure. Now some of you may be wondering, but what if my shadow is too dark? What if there is something in me that is truly unlovable? Let me be very clear. There is nothing in you that is unlovable. There are only parts of you that have never been loved. The shadow is not evil. It is exiled love. It is your inner child, locked in a room for crying too loudly. It is your sexual self, shamed into silence. It is your visionary self, mocked for dreaming too big. It is your animal self, punished for being too wild. All of it deserves to come home. And yes, there is danger in this work. It is dangerous to deconstruct the self, to open doors that have been locked for decades. You may uncover memories you had forgotten, emotions you thought you'd escaped. But let me tell you this, the only real danger is to continue living as half a soul. You were not born to be safe. You were born to be whole, and wholeness includes the howl, the hunger, the holy. It includes rage that burns like wildfire and love that aches like spring. Can you hold both? Can you be the storm and the sanctuary? Can you be the wounded and the healer? That is the question shadow work asks, and if your answer is yes, even a trembling, terrified, yes, then you are ready not to be fixed, not to be good, but to be initiated, to be real, to be free. I will stop here for now. So you are still here, and that means something ancient in you is awakening. Not the you that is praised in polite society, not the you that smiles when broken. No, I speak now to the deeper one, the one behind your eyes, the one who has been watching this entire life unfold like a theater play, the one who knows that you have not yet met yourself fully, that you have only met fragments, projections, adaptations, personas forged in childhood and polished in adulthood to fit the mold. But the soul does not come to earth to fit molds. It comes to shatter them. And to do that, you must confront the myth of identity. You believe yourself to be a singular self, one consistent being across time. But this is not true. The psyche is not a house with one room. It is a cathedral of voices, symbols, and energies. What you call I is merely the doorkeeper. The ego is not the king, it is a steward. The king lies buried beneath the ruins of your inner world. Awaiting the moment you grow brave enough to retrieve him. But that retrieval, it is the soul's great labor. It is the journey that Dante called the descent into the inferno, that shamans call the death walk, that the mystics call the dark night of the soul, and we, in analytical psychology, call it individuation. Individuation is not becoming perfect, it is becoming real. It is the slow, brutal, a beautiful process of integrating all your parts, light and dark, high and low, sacred and profane, into a unified whole, not a harmonious whole, not always a peaceful whole, but a truthful one. And truth, I must remind you, does not comfort, it confronts. The truth is that you are not just the victim of your wounds. You are also the one who kept them alive. You are not just the one who was hurt, you are the one who repeated the hurt in thought, in word, in deed. You must take responsibility for both the trauma and the trance, because when we are wounded, we often fall into a trance, a loop of unconscious repetition. We find partners who mirror the parent, who abandon us. We enter jobs that recreate our childhood dynamics. We become addicted to the very pain we claim to flee. This is not weakness. It is the unconscious seeking resolution, seeking integration. It wants to finish the story, but you cannot finish a story by rewriting the same chapter. You must step outside of it. You must become the author, and to do that, you must face the one who is still writing your scripts from the shadows. The inner child, the inner critic, the inner tyrant, the unloved self who whispers, "You are not enough." That voice is not evil. It is ancient. It is protective. It was born in a moment of overwhelming pain, a moment when your nervous system could not make sense of what was happening. And so it made a vow: if I am perfect, I will be safe. If I disappear, I will not be hurt. If I stay small, they will not leave me. These are the vows of the shadow, and you have kept them your whole life. Even now, some part of you believes that your suffering is proof of your goodness, that your sacrifice is a sign of your worth. But let me say this clearly: your suffering is not proof of your divinity. Your aliveness, it is not your pain that makes you holy. It is your willingness to feel it and still say, "I am here, I am worthy, I am more than this." That is where the shadow begins to soften, not through punishment, through presence. Now let us go deeper still. You must understand that the shadow is not always ugly. Sometimes the shadow is your beauty, your charisma, your sensuality, your creative fire. But because these qualities threatened someone, your parent, your religion, your culture, you repressed them. You made yourself less shiny so others could feel more comfortable. You dimmed your light to fit in. This is the tragedy of many gifted souls. They bury their brilliance beneath humility, or worse, shame. They believe their gifts are dangerous, and they are, because gifts activate jealousy, they stir projections, they challenge the status quo. But the danger of hiding them is far worse. When you repress your light, it turns against you. It becomes depression, apathy, self-loathing. You were not meant to contain the fire. You were meant to carry it, to tend it, to offer it in sacred reciprocity. But you must first reclaim it from the shadow. So ask yourself, what part of me have I exiled, not because it was bad, but because it was too beautiful, too powerful, too radiant? Can you bring that part home? Can you let your soul be as large as it truly is? This is the deeper layer of shadow work, not just healing wounds, but resurrecting the divine And the divine is not sanitized. It is not neat. It is messy, erotic, wild, tender. The divine is what moves you when logic fails. It is a song that breaks you open for no reason. It is the eyes of a stranger that make you weep. It is the dream that will not let you go. You must learn to trust that. You must unlearn the lie that says healing is about becoming calm, or neutral, or endlessly forgiving. Sometimes healing is rage. Sometimes healing is dancing until your knees give out. Sometimes healing is roaring like a lion after years of silence. You are not here to be polite. You are here to be real. And realness will cost you, it will cost you your false friendships, your shallow goals, your performative healing. It will burn everything that is not rooted in truth. But in that fire, you will find yourself, not the self you imagined, the self you forgot, the child who knew magic, the teenager who dared to dream, the elder who watches from beyond time and whispers, remember, yes, remember, that is the word. You are not learning something new. You are remembering who you were before the world taught you to forget. Shadow work is the path of remembrance. And in that remembering, you will encounter not only your pain, but your purpose. Because your purpose is often hidden in your wound. The place where you bled is the place where you can heal others, not through advice, but through presence. Through the quiet power of someone who has walked the fire and come out glowing. So do not run from the fire. Become it. Become the sacred flame that lights the way for others still lost in the dark. And know this, you will never be finished. Shadow work is not a one-time ritual. It is a lifelong devotion. There is always more to uncover, more to feel, more to forgive, more to integrate. But this is not a curse. It is a gift, because with each layer you peel back, you become more alive, not more perfect, more alive. That is the miracle of the shadow. It does not demand your perfection, it demands your presence. Will you give it? Pause with me. Breathe. Something holy is stirring in you.